let me do the little intro and then the floor is all yours. So, Janie and I have been working on this, sounds like forever. And for whatever reason, it just planning and other things. I'm glad it's happening right now. But I've reached out a little bit of a backstory to this. I've reached out to them to Bull Run. Let's take a step back, actually. The reason I even reached out to Jenny is because I actually met a common acquaintance at a conference in Vegas. This was I guess, a webinar, you could call it, not even a webinar. It was a conference for NFTs and crypto a couple of years back. And that person suggested that I reach out. And so I have, and the guys were just outstanding to work with. They kind of understood the idea behind the white labeling of what we're trying to, not even the white labeling, but like a special bottling for us. And they were happy to oblige. And we did not one, but two expressions that are both going right now. And then I also wanted to kind of pay it back and at least expose our community to your fantastic portfolio. And so we've been planning it for about a year, and finally today's the day. So with that being said, I'll let you introduce yourself, guys, tell a little bit of a backstory behind how you guys started, what's in store for today, although we already gone through the tasting lineup, and perhaps tell us a little bit more of what's on the horizon.
No, this is Jennifer. She's my beautiful wife, partner, boss, everything. But I'm Lee. I'm the main distiller here, head distiller. We started Bull Run back in 2010. This is my second distillery. I had another one before that called House Spirits. We were making aviation gin, is probably our biggest product, but I was more interested in whiskey, and the little bit of whiskey we were making at House Spirits was really popular. So I sold my share off to my partner to start Bull Run, which is pretty much a dedicated whiskey distillery in all aspects. I wanted to be able to play around with a lot of different things. And so our business plan from the beginning, our big project was making American single malt from scratch and a few other things. But we also wanted to do merchant bottling as well. So I wanted to have, I feel very fortunate that we had this whole kind of treasure chest of whiskeys that we play with. But something that we've really kind of come to in the past, 5 or 6 years is a lot more barrel finishes. As a small craft distillery, being able to differentiate yourself from the bigger guys and even our peers, I found that barrel finishing, has become a really popular thing for us. And so we've got let me see, one, two, two of them right now. But we play around with our business model has changed quite a bit, and almost right now, most of what we sell anymore is a barrel finished product. We have everything from the wine finishes, which are extremely popular. In fact, the Chinato finish, the Vermouth finish, was our very first barrel finish that we did way back in, I think, 2011, and it's been a perennial favorite. But we play with brandy barrels, rye barrels, tequila barrels, sherry barrels, Madeira barrels, whatever we get our hands on, especially the more unique things are better, even better. We use local people here. In fact, we got a Nocino finish from another distillery who makes Nocino and barrel ages that. I've been trying to convince him to do nothing but that, because we only get maybe 2 or 3 barrels a year from him. So hopefully we get some more. But basically all things whiskey is what we like to play with here. And I feel very fortunate that we have this great treasure chest of whiskeys to choose from. But yeah, happy to answer any other questions about what we got going on, but we might as well start sampling. The first one we have out, like I said, is our American whiskey. This is a 96% corn whiskey, aged in used bourbon barrels. We like to
99%.
99%. 99%.
That's right. Keep them honest.
But we bottle this at barrel strength, which is whatever it comes out of the bottle at. And this version right here is 58.92%. I think it's probably the lightest on the palate that we have, and it's the sweetness from all that corn really comes through, but it's still really accessible. And I think at the high proof, this gives you even more leeway to adjust it to how you like to taste it.
How many people on a call actually tried anything from Bull Run before? Oh, okay. So most did actually. Great. Awesome. That's perfect.
Jen, just an FYI, the website says 96 as well, Lee, so I think you're good.
No, yeah, that mash has changed just a little tiny bit. We get, when you get into the story and you're saying the same things, it's why you said we were 11 years old, or when you gave us the wrong age. We get into the story and then it's like, oh, so
I just
we
forget
get,
how long we've been doing it.
yeah.
It only seems like 11 years, not not 14.
Do you guys release these in batches or just single barrels at a time, or?
In batches, we do a lot of custom barrels for retailers and clubs around the country. That's kind of the real meat of our business. But at the same time, we have kind of like a general lineup of products, and like the American whiskey that we're tasting right now is kind of our blend here that we do, and we dump maybe 15 to 20 barrels at a time and bottle that up. And this is something that we have in distribution, but it's not a single barrel. It's a blend of all these barrels, and but it's people like it because I think it's a kind of the way I like to describe it is that people that like, say, a sweeter offering, like here in the Northwest, Canadian whiskey is still very, very popular. And so people have that kind of palate for that sweetness, lightness, and character. This is a little bit heavier than obviously Canadian whiskey is, but it delivers that sweetness that people like. And so that's kind of our version. When people come in and they don't want to have a big, barrel heavy focused bourbon of some sort or rye, this is something that we can offer them. But what also is really great about this is when we first discovered it is that, because of the lack of barrel intensity to it, it's great for barrel finishing. And that's what we use a lot in our barrel finish products because it doesn't compete with the other barrels that we're putting it into. In fact, what's great, a good example is to take the next bottle was the Pinot Noir finish. This is the same juice, the same American whiskey, but we finish it in French oak Pinot Noir barrels. And I think it really gives you an idea of exactly how, how important barrels are in transforming a whiskey. As you probably know, obviously whiskey is super stable, coming off the still and going into a bottle with, if it's sitting and staying in the steel or the IBC or something like that, nothing's happening to it. And barrels, at the intermediary stage, barrels are super important to giving the product, color, flavor, nuance, and everything on. I'm sure you'll all know that. But this is a good kind of example of when you try these side by side, comparing the straight high proof American whiskey with the Pinot finish. And what I find about like this, and I think that's why it's become very popular for us, is that it's not American oak. And American oak gives off, some really nice flavors. Who doesn't like, caramel, butterscotch, cedar, and vanillins? Really nice. But French oak is a little more elegant. It gives you lighter vanillins and also that more kind of coffee, chocolatey flavors coming through. But also because of the wine that was in the barrel, but also the French oak itself, it's much tighter grain. It dries the product out. And so I think that's what surprises most people is the fact that we use this American whiskey, which is really pretty sweet on the palate, and you dump it into the French oak, and it really transforms it into something completely different. But with the Pinot finish, the age statement on there that says 16 years. That's the total aging time. Then on the bottle, when you look down, it says additional aging. It's 12 months. So 12 months, or basically one entire year, of that total 16 was spent in French oak.
Yeah, got it.
One of our older labels, just to have a little aside, is dealing with the TTB is always a challenge. And we originally were able to put it on an age statement on there. Then they made us take it off. Then they allowed us to do it again. But then they made us, if we wanted to tell how long the product was actually in the second barrel, we had to add, according to them, we had to add additional aging time, which is very confusing to people. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's not 16 years plus 12 months. It's 12 months included in that 16 years.
Yeah. Okay.
But do you taste the difference between the two? I hope it's
Oh,
pretty.
totally. I do. And I think you hit it right on the point where the second one has more of a chocolatey cherry notes in there, more so, and a lot more floral because of that Pinot Noir influence. The first one is probably more on a classic vintage bourbon profile, but it's still, to your point, very reminiscent of Canadian whiskey in terms of how light it is and how sweet it is. So at least that's my perception. What do you guys think?
I love single malt, so the first one's amazing for me. And I'm not a big fan of wine finishes, but I do like this one, the Pinot.
Oh, good.
It sort of reminds me of, we did a tasting a little while back with Westward guys, and they also have a Pinot finish. Theirs was a little bit more fruity. It was a lot more like strawberry heavy notes. This isn't it, but it kind of reminds me, just in terms of the overall profile. It's a bit. It's a little bit closer on that gamut, right? If they're completely went to the left side towards like the fruity notes, this one's sort of like closer to the middle, but still you can totally see the French oak influence and the Pinot influence in a good way.
These are single malts? Is that what you said?
No, they're
No.
they're corn whiskeys.
Yeah, corn whiskey. Yeah, we're not tasting any of our single malts tonight.
Okay, but you guys make single malts. Is that okay? Okay. Yeah, I have a different group I'm in as well. They did a pick of the Pinot, and I keep it down in their fridge in my barn/workshop, and it's great to go to after working out there in the summer heat. Kind of at the end, it's like a cherry freezy pop kind of thing. When I drink it, it's so good, so good.
Yeah, it's interesting with wine finishes. They can kind of be all over the board. Pinot Noir is Oregon's #1 grape varietal, and that's one reason why we picked it, is because it's right here in our region. And but I like the fact that it gives you some tannins, but you really don't necessarily taste the fruit that much with Pinot Noir. It's much more subtle. So it's like between drinking a rosé versus a full-on red wine. But with some of our Cabernet finishes and Syrah finishes and Zinfandel finishes, the things that we do, you can really taste the fruit a lot more in it. But personally, I prefer the Pinot Noir finish because you really don't get that wine hit necessarily. And I think it's really good for cocktails. We really enjoy making cocktails here, especially Jennifer. She makes great cocktails. I drink them. I don't drink them, so don't ask me to make a cocktail, but I rely on her. But it works out really, really nicely in a cocktail.
Yeah, we did 2 picks with you guys. This is it. I hope you can see my screen, but the 15-year-old sold out right quick. Like it didn't stick around too long. The Chinato finish stuck around a little bit longer, I think, because people didn't really know what Chinato was. And so and then when we explained, hey, that's just a vermouth, I think it opened up people's
people were ordering it in our tasting room as Chinato.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, there's a funny story. Brandon here is on the line, and him and I always go back and forth in terms of, hey, how are we going to name our next selection? Right? Give it a cheeky name. And so his first idea was, hey, let's play on that Chinatown theme and name it something similar. Yeah. Well, we decided not to, but I totally see why people look at that.
I actually like both of them. Is there anything unique about the corn you guys are using, or is it Oregon corn or?
No, well, these are merchant bottle products. We get the corn whiskey from MGP.
Okay.
You guys don't have your own distillate, right? Or do you?
We have the single malt is our main distillate that we make in house.
Okay.
Everything else is merchant bottles from that point. We did make some rye as well in the past, but we sold out of that already.
And our rum, our vodkas.
Oh yeah, rum and vodkas
are made in house.
Got it.
I think tasting them back to back, the first and the second, I almost lean a little towards the first one, a little preference towards the first one tonight, but they strike me as, because they're very different in flavor, it's kind of any given night what you're in the mood for.
Yeah, what your mood is, yeah.
I mean, I have a question, but I'll save it for later. It's around your quote unquote rare cask selection series. But
Sure.
let's get through this, and then we'll tackle these one-offs or special projects that you guys
Okay.
do.
Sure. Well, want to move on to the rye next?
Yeah, let's do rye.
All right.
So a lot of times, people when people taste or smell MGP rye, the first note that people talk about is dill, and I never get it, but I get it in this.
Yeah, I get the same thing. A lot of people think of the rye that I get they say like it was spicy and stuff. I don't never really get that spiciness, but I get this more herbaceousness coming off
Yeah.
of this rye.
Yeah,
God, I get dill on the nose. I don't know
Yeah.
why. Like
as do
like
I.
like dill. Yeah.
It's like sticking my nose in a can of like pickled,
Yeah.
pickles.
Well, like
Yeah.
like my dad making fresh pickles in the basement with fresh
That's
dill.
right. That's right.
Wow.
And knowing your heritage, Ken, we come from the same clothes. So yes,
Right?
exactly.
From Sweden.
I get a lot of floral on the nose.
Grain.
Right.
But yeah, I think this rye surprises a lot of people when they taste it. I think they're expecting something more like Old Overholt whenever somebody tries it, much more harder edged and leaner. This is a lot. It's still got kind of, because it's so much rye. I mean, it still has like a leanness to it, but I find it to be much softer.
Yeah, more mouth.
See, and I was thinking different. I was thinking this is bold. It's like
mouth
bold and
filling.
refreshing.
Doesn't have a bite though, really.
Yeah, it doesn't have much of a bite for me. I get this kind of round mouthfeel, not much of a bite. I definitely get that herbaceousness coming through.
100%. And which speaks to, and we do this a lot when we talk about the differences between bourbons and rye, just in terms of where people are on their whiskey journey. I think a lot of people start off with bourbon, right? Because it's just an easy spirit to get into. But like, I guess the gamut, it's a little bit narrower than it is with the rye. With the rye, there's much more variety in profile and how they taste. And you get all kinds of experience with the rye, whereas bourbon, like, okay, it's you get classical bourbon notes, right? If it's great, it's great. But with rye, if it's great, it's really fantastic. And well, this one is very different for me. Like, I don't think I've had anything like this.
Yeah, we get that comment quite a bit. I mean, they expect something else, and then when they taste this, it's they're either pleasantly surprised by it, or maybe it's not their cup of tea. But yeah, it's definitely different than a lot of ryes.
Got a kind of spearmint gum note on
Yes.
this finish.
For sure.
It's really the only word I can kind of think of is light, kind of almost like a refreshing
Right.
sort of feeling to it.
I was going to say in the beginning it has short finish, but it doesn't. It actually has a finish. It just doesn't have that bite that you guys talking about.
Yeah, and it's more of a mouth filling.
Yes.
Than
It's
other
not-
varieties I've tried.
It's not the spice you would expect from you think about for a rye. It's just yeah.
What's the
I
mash?
just put a couple of tiny little cubes in it, and I'm getting spearmint now. Just a touch.
What's the mash bill on this? Is it 95.5?
Yes, 95.5. Yes.
Interesting. Well, we're launching a Bardstown Bourbon Company rye next week, which was finished in like cherry wood and toasted oak. It's like a zebra barrel inside, right, where the staves are alternating. And I was tasting the sample that I have for like tasting notes, and it's also 95.5, but it's so different from this. Like, they're just completely from different worlds.
Oh yeah.
Which again goes to my point how rye could be just ever changing, and it's a good thing.
Another clue, I think, to its softness as well is that we cut this to basically about 90 proof. Is we never try and get anything right on. We kind of embrace the inconsistency of the bottling, but our routine, the batches, the batch 1 and number 10 aren't like this. They're more like this for a consumer. But one of the things is that Portland's water is very, very soft water. And I think that contributes to the kind of the softness of the spirits that we cut it with.
Right.
You know, soft water. You know, it has. You know, if you ever try to take a shower with soft water, I feel like you can't get the soap off because it has that really kind of, you know, mouth coating softness to it. That might be one clue is why you're getting kind of a less leanness and hardness.
That's not a bad thing. It's just very specific and very different. I didn't have any expectations on what it should taste like, but it certainly is different. And I think it'll make it for a killer cocktail as well.
I was actually going to ask that. What cocktails do you make with that one?
Yeah.
Well, I love the classics. A Sazerac's really great with that. But yeah, I also tend to mix whiskeys when I'm making cocktails. Like I like to take, you know, something for the body and then something for aromatics, or just to really make a layered drink.
I have all these whiskey poured out in Glencairns on my table, and I'm looking at the next sample, which would be the Chinato finish, and it's the darkest one of all, like markedly darker.
It is dark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, shall we move on to it then?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
I'll tell people a little quick story about this one. So like when we got samples from you guys way back when, we immediately loved two samples. First of all, we taste everything blind. So I wasn't quite sure what it is that we liked, especially. And when we, you know, read the labels, I was shocked that one of them was, I wasn't shocked about the 15-year-old, but I was shocked about this one for the profile. Like it drank almost like a cocktail right out of the glass, but it's still very much bourbon. So like I'd be curious to hear people's take, especially if you didn't buy a bottle of this. Like if this is the first time you're trying this.
It's not my first time, but I did buy one bottle the first time. And then, because I always go, I like a Manhattan, but I like just a touch of vermouth.
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
And when I drank this, I was like, well, shit, I can put this over ice and just drink it. So I went back and bought 4 more bottles. Yeah, it's one I keep going back to.
It's very nutty. Like that's the notes that I picked up in back then, and I still get them. Like it's very nutty, which my personal palate agrees with personally. So that's no wonder why we loved it. Again, I'm going to put Brandon on a hot seat. Like he was the one that was tasting it with me back then. Brandon, what do you think? I mean, what was the last time you've had this?
It's been a while since I've had it, and I loved it when we first tasted it. You gave it to me blind, and I had no idea what I was drinking.
Yeah, I didn't tell you what it was. Yeah,
this is wacky, but it was really good, and I'm still enjoying it now. I agree with Chris. It's like a dry Manhattan.
I say
Right.
deconstructed sometimes. If I really want to sound fancy, a deconstructed Manhattan. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic dessert pour for me.
First started this project, the Vermouth or the Chinato was actually made by a winery, a friend of ours here in Oregon, and we got the first barrels. This is our very first barrel finishing experiment that we did, and it was a big hit. That's when the light bulb went off. You know, I said, "Hey, we got to do more of this." But yeah, the Chinato is a very complex vermouth. You know, it's not Martini and Rossi by any means.
Right.
Really pretty on its own.
It's much more Amaro-like, actually.
Yes.
But yeah, opening the bung up of the barrel and putting your nose in there with the first time, that's exactly what I thought. It smelled like a Manhattan.
Right.
And I thought in tasting it too. I mean, I agree. It's a cocktail in the barrel.
Have you guys ever considered doing a rye with the same finish? And the reason I ask is because one of my personal favorites is High West Yippee-Ki-Yay, which they don't make anymore, apparently, or at least make very little of. And that is a rye finished in vermouth casks. So have you guys considered doing something similar?
We haven't. That's actually a good idea to do.
We do have rye in our amphora that had a rock in it, and so that's kind of a fun. I'll send you a sample of that, maybe.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
we have rye in some of our rum barrels, and we've got some sitting in what did we just put some brandy barrels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had it in tequila barrels as well. So, but yeah, we have never thought about the vermouth.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody wants to do. Sorry to interrupt, but it's not like nobody wants to do it. I'm just surprised nobody, or not a lot of people have imitated, so to speak, for the lack of the better word, that formula. Because the Yippee-Ki-Yay, in and by itself, has been a hit for High West. I talk now from the retailer standpoint. Like we've sold tons of it when it was available, and some when it wasn't. The people were actively looking for it, and so it'd be great to like try replicating some of that.
Yeah, some of the first batches of Yippee-Ki-Yay were rumored to have 15 to 17-year-old MGP rye in them. And I was lucky enough to try one of those batches back in the day. It's still one of my favorite whiskeys I've ever tried. And it's that rye finish in vermouth. I don't know why that combination works, but it does.
We'll have to check it out.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. Yeah, it's another situation though with our friend Patrick who makes the Chinato. He's a winemaker, and I can't convince him to give up making wine and just do Chinato for me. And this is once again, this is a situation where we only get like, well, we've been getting a few more barrels, but we get like 4 or 5 barrels a year from him. So I think the next time he dumps some, we'll pour some rye into it and try that.
Yeah, perhaps we'll make it into a project. With the Prime Barrel, make it our next project. So.
I'd be willing to just pre-buy that one to help with that.
So then it's happening.
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
I mean, I've got a few bottles behind me, so
Yes, you do. All right. I mean, I can just smell this thing forever. This is, like I said, I like sitting on my porch drinking this after meal. This is nice.
We're good.
All right.
We'll keep making it then.
Oh,
yeah.
Please do. Please do.
This is our barrel strength bourbon. This is just our workhorse bourbon, but we do it at barrel strength compared to, we have a yellow label bourbon that's cut to 90 proof, but this is whatever it is coming out of the barrel.
So this one is 111.
Yeah, this batch is, yep, one.
This one's a little bit hot.
Mine says 114.
114.
114.
Yeah, 114. I didn't have my glasses on.
Yours says 114?
Yeah, 114.16.
16, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have a crease in my label, so it looks like 111. Okay, yes, 114. Correct.
So
Okay.
same base of mash.
Yeah, same grain bill as the Chinato. But this really kind of surprised us. We've had this out since maybe the second year or the third year that we were in business, and we have tasting rooms here, and we're allowed to sell to consumers. And so we did this as an experiment, and it really took off. It became very popular, and I think doing it at high proof. I think we try and do almost everything we do is 100 proof or higher. We have a few products like the rye that's at 90. The other bourbon at 90, but at higher proof, I think this gives the consumer a lot more leeway to water the product down or make cocktails out of it. You're not making a cocktail and diluting it down to 50% alcohol right away with ice. And so, but I still think at this high proof, it's still very accessible.
I like to say adjust to your day. Maybe
What was the mash bill on this bourbon?
75, 25.
75, 21.
Oh, 21.
Yeah, 21.
75, 21, 4. I was like it just has a hint of rye in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What's the age on this?
We pull this from our 4-year-old lots of barrels. We're actually going to be going up to 6-year, probably the next batch. We'll pull from our 6-year lots. But yeah, I mean, even at this high proof, that's what kind of with showcasing in the tasting room. We had people, the comments were overwhelmingly positive about this, even at the high proof. And so, with doing around with our friends too, they had the same comments, is that, it's not, they were expecting some big burn and some heat and, something they kind of choke on, but nobody's, complained about that.
It's like a sugary spice on it, like a caramel, but sweeter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if things at high proof too, just magnify the barrel character. I think what I think another people like about it is that you can really taste the barrel in this. And like I said, new American oak barrels give off some really pleasant, flavors. Who doesn't like, butterscotch and cedar and vanilla?
Love all those.
To name a few.
To me, all of these expressions, and I don't know, maybe this is water. for the lack of the better word, they're more elegant than perhaps their like Indiana or Kentucky counterparts. And even though this comes from Indiana, right, most of it, I just don't understand why that is. It's not a bad thing, but
It's
like even go ahead,
These
sorry.
touch.
Yeah, well, it has to be.
Yeah, well, not so much. I mean, it's a lot of this is being aged here in Oregon too, and I think that that's got to account for something. You know, we
The
really have
environment.
4 distinct seasons here in the Willamette Valley here, and so you've got this much gentle heating and cooling of the atmosphere, and in the rack house, this big unheated, building. And so we don't get that pushing and pulling that you get out of, Kentucky or Tennessee, someplace like that. And you also don't get that kind of lack of convection you get out of, something in Scotland or Ireland. And so this is, I think this region of the country is going to prove to be a really good area to age whiskeys. It's very young, we've only been in business, the industry here in Oregon, is making whiskeys is pretty young. We're under 20 years old. But I think with the results that we're getting, I think it might be a good place to age whiskey.
So how old is this one again? I'm sorry.
5 years.
5
5 years.
Yeah.
Now, so how long is it aged by you in Oregon?
Usually about 3 years at least.
Okay.
I mean, this would be probably a great way to introduce somebody to a barrel strength. Like if they're ready to make that leap, it's really easy drinking on a sweeter side barrel strength bourbon, right? Versus their, let's say, Kentucky counterparts.
Yeah,
For a 5-year-old, it drinks a little bit older to me.
I'm gonna use that word that we all hate. It is smooth.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I would easily guess closer to an old Ezra, like 7, 7, 8, 9 kind of range. So yeah.
It has a little bit of everything, right? It has that sweet profile, maybe a little bit more sweeter than people are used to. And again, like in all my years catering to different palates, like I've kind of figured out a couple of things. One is you can split bourbon drinkers into 2 groups in terms of people gravitating towards sweeter side of things and people gravitating towards more oaky side of things. And sometimes they don't mesh or overlap. Like this one will definitely please the first group, the sweeter side of bourbon. And at the same time, it does have pretty long finish. It has a bit of spice, but it's not that, it's not that leather, tobacco, oaky spice. It's just pleasant spice, maybe like some baking spices mixed in there. Like that's what I'm getting from it, and I really like it actually. All right.
I think again for the people that don't drink a lot, that doesn't have that long burn. It's just a nice,
Correct.
It's a nice long finish, but it's
kind of tingles.
That nasty smooth word.
Mm-hmm.
I just asked my wife which vineyard it was in Oregon. They gave her a case when she graduated in undergrad there, and it was Schaefer's Vineyards. So I don't know if you guys ever had a chance. They were near Willamette Valley, between Forest Grove and Willamette Valley. So
yeah. Well, that's a cool.
We like the Oregon area. I mean, she was there for 4 years, obviously. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, beautiful territory for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, people are like, I'm reading some comments, and people are really liking this 5-year 114 expression. It's, easy to love. I'm not surprised.
Good. Yeah. Instead of like smooth, I like the word accessible.
Yeah.
Approachable. Yeah.
Approachable. I'm catching up on some of the comments and going back to the Chinato one. Some people said, hey, the bourbon and Chinato wasn't their cup of tea, but there definitely will be up for rye finish in Chinato. So that's another reason to at least try it.
More motivation to do it then.
There you go.
Yeah. And somebody said the Vermouth one had very Christmassy holiday type profile.
Yeah, we released it during the holidays. We would get the barrels in maybe January or February from the winery, and then we fill full of whiskey, and then by the holidays, right after maybe between Halloween and Thanksgiving, we'd bottle it up. And so it's a big hit during the holidays. All right. Well, now for something completely different. So the genesis of this was the fact that Jennifer has a friend in Vermont who has a, for better term, like a a maple plantation, and he makes maple syrup. And we bought a bunch of his maple syrup and we put it into barrels. We were going to sell it as a barrel-aged maple syrup in our tasting rooms. But every time we thought about bottling it up, we ran into the FDA, and it's a food product. So we have not only the TTB to worry about, but we have the FDA, which is even more complicated.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to even touch that and have it coming in here and fiddling around with stuff
would
like
have
that.
to clarify it or what?
Yeah, there's just too much to do. But Jennifer, her brilliant idea then was say, well, just throw it in a bunch of whiskey and see what happens. And so we did it right around the holidays. We did it in little 375s, and we were going to sell it through the store, our tasting rooms, just to see the reaction. And it was a huge hit. We sold out almost immediately. We did another batch really quickly. It sold out of that. And that's once again when I got a slap in the face or the light bulb went off. We thought, well, we need to do more of this. And so this has actually become one of our top 3 sellers.
Yeah,
Wow.
this is
Get the cocktail in the glass
This would make a badass old fashioned.
and
Oh
that's
my
what I
God.
pitch it as.
Right? Yeah.
It needs initially if someone says this is too sweet, well, once you put like a big ice cube in there and an orange peel and some bitters or whatever, it tamps down that sweetness. But that's also why we keep ramping up the proof, because I want it to be an old fashioned on an ice cube.
Yeah, we try and keep it. We don't want to make a liqueur, and so we try and make this. We usually bottle it right around 100 proof.
Yeah, but this batch is 108.
I said right about.
Yeah, I need to get me a few bottles of this one. This is epic.
That's just really good.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to this one. I was like, they're saving the best for last, and yeah, this is
Are you guys aging this in a barrel that held maple syrup, or how are you getting the maple syrup in there?
We just infuse it. We take this is made with our American whiskey. So going back to the very first bottle we tried, that's the base for this.
the corn whiskey base.
Corn whiskey base, and then we add maple syrup to it and mix it up really well and filter it for stability, and so it doesn't come out of solution. But it's surprising how little maple syrup we need to add to get to this level right here. So right now, this is what's the consensus. This is like the sweetness level. And what I like about it myself, not being necessarily a fan of like flavored whiskeys that much, but using the maple syrup, you don't just get that sweetness from like invert sugar or something like that, or glycerin. You actually taste the maple syrup, and that's what I like about it. Much richer. That's all it is whiskey and maple syrup. We're going to be segueing into, not right now, but coming up, we're going to be using bourbon for this as well.
So it can be on the label too.
I would like to try I would like to try that, because even with ice, it's very sweet.
You could throw anything in this and it would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, for cocktails, sometimes I'm using this plus bourbon or something so that you get more of that mid body. But just easy, ready to drink right out of the bottle. Yeah, I like adding bitters to it and pulling it down just a bit. It makes a great maple whiskey sour too, putting 2 ounces of that and about 3/4 ounce of fresh lemon juice in a shaker, and then you've got a maple whiskey sour.
Okay, so that's 6. So we do have a survey to get to, and so normally what we do during these tastings, I send out a survey, which is I'm going to put a link in the chat. People will essentially rate everything they've tasted today on a scale 0 to 10, 5 being an average. Anything below 5, people don't necessarily care for. Anything above 5, people do like it to different degrees, right? So let me do that right now. And while people are filling it out, we'll talk about your rare cask series that I've seen a few examples of.
I will say while Michael's doing that, I always appreciated you guys have a great price structure, good value for the cost versus what you get. It's always been really
Yeah.
good.
Good. Well, thank you. Yeah, we try and not, costs have been going up since the pandemic and everything like that, but we try and keep it, reasonable, not too crazy.
So I've seen a few expressions pop up online. One of them was, I think, a 10-year-old bourbon finished in cognac, and it had an interesting label and it had an interesting note below the age statement, which said Rare Cask Series. Can you talk a little more about that? Like, what is that?
That is our kind of designation for things that we don't have a lot of.
Mhm.
Or something that we find. I mean, what's been really nice actually working with MGP, honestly, and some of the brokers we work with is that we are always getting calls saying that they found something,
Right.
So usually we've been able to find like really old whiskeys, interesting grain bills. It all depends, what we're finding, and usually, 9 out of 10 times what they're offering is really decent stuff, and so, but it's limited, and you're not ever get it again. And so we usually select those products for the rare cask selection. And it also happens to be barrels as well. If we get some really interesting barrels that we probably can't afford to get any more again or something, we'll put the product in that and age it and finish it in that. And so the rare cask selection is just a category for us for things that may not ever be duplicated again. So they're basically really just one-offs.
Okay, so there is an ulterior motive behind my question, and that is, do you guys have anything like that for us to pick from? Is there anything that you think we would be, curious about, or maybe?
We've got an interesting grain bill that we had for a while ago. It was a bourbon, but it was 49% malted barley.
Okay.
It was aged in New American oak and everything, but we've got some of that finishing in Madeira barrels.
Oh, yeah.
And so, because one of our most popular single malts that we have out is the single malt aging in Madeira barrels. And I think that's a really beautiful combination compared to sherry. We have sherry barrels as well. But one that you might be interested in is this high malt bourbon that's aged in or finished in the Madeira barrels.
Okay. I mean, Jen, if you want to put a package together and send it my way, I won't say no to that. And then you never know what can happen. But be that as it may, like I'll happily take the samples. But I do want to explore at least the rye and the vermouth with the vermouth Chinato finish. I think that would be something interesting.
So we can definitely do that.
Okay, so I can explain how the scale works, and it's pretty straightforward. So start out with a 14-year-old American whiskey. People loved it, or liked it, I should say. Nobody didn't like it, right? A few people thought it was okay, and then a few more thought it was actually pretty special. Average rating 6.5, pretty respectable. Just so you guys know, when we do these battle picks, when we go on these trips, if it's a 7 for us, that normally becomes a selection. Like it's rare that we get 8, 9s. We never scored anything 10. So that's where that is as a benchmark. So 6.5 is a good score. The Pinot Noir finish, interesting. The score is, so first of all, there's only 12 people that filled it out. So the average rating is going to be affected by that, obviously. So this one was affected by someone clearly not caring for one, but most people did like it. I was one of them. I really liked one. I think the cherry and chocolate notes for me stood out. But that's fine. Everyone has their own palate. So 6.1, still above 5. That's pretty respectable. Carlton Rye, I was kind of curious how it's going to get received. So you have kind of like this classical bell curve. Like some people didn't care for it, and some people really loved it. As I said, it was really different in terms of what people expect in a rye, especially MGP rye. To me, it was almost like a pickled juice in a good way, in a different way. Like it really stood out from all the other ryes, but I could see how people wouldn't necessarily like it if they're inclined towards more classical rye profile. So 5.9, still above 5, right? Chinato, 6.6. Interesting. Again, somebody didn't like it, but then most people did, which is good to hear. And again, it's sold out, so I am not offended if somebody didn't like it. But good to know. Good to know that people actually do like that sort of project. And then your black label barrel strength bourbon 6.7. I'm not keeping score. I think that's the highest score, right? So far, yeah, that's the highest. That is the highest from today, as expected. Most of us are here bourbon and rye drinkers. Most of us like their stuff punchy, flavorful, and I think that one was clearly, yeah, on that. It kind of fitted that profile. And then the last one, 6.2. Again, classical bell curve. Some people didn't care for it. Some people loved it. So 6.2. The good thing about today is that nothing got scored at 5 or below. So people did like the portfolio, which is the whole point of this, right? The point is to expose people to completely different selections that they might not necessarily purchase if they never tried them before. And so now that they have, all of these are going to be available on our website. I think in a couple of days, I'll post them quite shortly. So if you guys like a bottle, you can. If you guys liked anything, you can pick up a bottle from us. That's where I'll leave it. Any comments on this? Does anybody want to maybe expand on their scoring, or?
I will. I was 8s across the board.
All right.
This is one of the few distilleries where I like all of the offerings. Each one is good. I didn't dislike any of them, and so you have to understand when we do take. Michael has like expanded our palates and taken us on crazy adventures that nobody ever could do. Right. So if you ever have an opportunity to taste something that's a 10, it's probably William Lureller. It's probably something that's 20 years old, came out of a dusty cabinet, and is probably a Four Roses, or it's whatever it is. But when you take that into account, I'm still giving you 8s across the board because it's solid.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
All right, and I can tell you this has been. That's probably. I mean, we've had tastings before where the flight took us on a journey, like from where it started and where it finished. And I think this is one of those instances where we kind of covered all bases, right? From the classical bourbon profile to finished stuff to like weird ryes to weird finishes. When weird, I'm using that term vernacular in a good way. Yeah,
Different.
Unique, different. Yes, that's probably a better way of describing it. Yeah, go ahead.
So in my again, I liked everything. Everything was good. The maple wasn't my favorite, but yet that's the one I'm going to buy next because I want that. I really want that. I want to throw that in an old fashioned. I want to give it to my wife, who's not a big whiskey drinker. I want to give it to my friends because it's clearly unique, and it definitely is. It's going to be a favorite.
Yeah.
This would be one of those ones where you put the Bull Run room on the web there, and we have a lot of chats within that room.
Actually, thank you for bringing that up, Chris. So, Jen, I'm not sure if you're aware, or not even sure if you are in our Discord, but we do have a pretty, engaging Discord community with, I think, 1,700 members now, probably over 1,700 members.
Wow.
And we do have a section there that is dedicated to our brand partners. Now, I'm not offering it to just everyone. I'm offering it to people that we've worked with that kind of see the future the same way we do. And more importantly, are willing to engage with people that actually drink their whiskeys, right? And so I've seen some brands do a better job at it. And through that, advancing their own agenda, right? So if you guys are interested, we can talk offline, but basically we can create a channel just for you. And then if people have, questions or any comments on Bull Run just in general, they can place it there. And that becomes a place where you as a brand get to communicate with the whiskey drinker.
I love that idea.
Yeah, we'd be interested in that, of course.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I'll send you an email with how that it's pretty simple. But I'll send you some instructions, and we'll be off and running in no time.
Cool.
Great.
All right. Well, this was probably one of the fastest tastings we've ever done.
This one,
Well,
It
I
is
don't know
literally
if
the
that's good or
fastest
bad.
tasting. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. I kind of like it because then it makes my life a lot easier in trying to like edit the video afterwards. And just for your own information, this will live on our YouTube channel. We have a landing page for these tasting events on our retail side of things, and I'll put up these expressions along with the recording of this, so people that bought the kit and couldn't attend today could at least rewatch it, right? And for everyone else, that becomes an educational video, and hopefully they'll become fans as well. From my end, I know you've gone for some personal stuff, so I completely sensitive to that, and I appreciate you guys being flexible and actually doing this with us. I look forward to many projects in the future. So we can.
Michael, they were on like 20 minutes before. I mean,
Oh wow!
both
Wow.
of us were on like 20 minutes early.
We
We're
really
just sitting there.
wanted to make sure that we had everything right.
That's great. That's awesome. That's fantastic. All right, guys. Any closing comments, questions? If not, I'll let the guys go.
all right. Well, no, but thank you very much
Yeah,
for
thanks for
joining us. I'm
featuring
glad you
us.
enjoyed the product. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very
Cheers.
much for your time.
Thanks for
Cheers.
taking the time.
Yeah.